You're listening to a Shockcast original. Shock.
The C Word with Callista.
Hello, hey everyone, my name is Callista and this is The C Word. And this episode we're joined by Z, who is the producer for Aishah and Prem, who are basically the mixed breakfast crew. And she's also a very close friend of mine, so we apologize in advance for all the giggling that might be happening. But hi Z. So all this time we've actually been talking to content creators, and when we speak to content creators, you can see straight up who they are. You can hear the words straight from their own mouths. You can see pretty much that they handle all their own platforms and stuff. But what's going to be interesting today is you may or may not know who Z is. You may or may not have heard her on the radio, but she is definitely creating content every single day, right?
Yeah, kind of 5 days a week, I would say. So kind of sort of, yes.
Like content is literally her full-time job.
Yeah, true.
So I think a lot of people don't realize. So what does a producer do? Tell us like the basics first.
In a nutshell, I'm the one who I guess makes sure that the show is up and running. That's like a general point of view. But to be specific, I have to make sure that I'm managing the talent, I'm managing the schedule, I'm creating content. I also have to take care of the quality, take care of the calls. So there's many things that goes under on how to make a good show. But basically, I am the one who keeps everyone on their toes.
Okay, so she's bossy boots.
I don't know. I try to be.
Okay, so when I met Z, she was actually producing for the Hitz Morning Crew. I think we came into Hitz around the same time. You were like slightly earlier than I was, but like, how did you even become a producer?
I always like to tell this story because how I went into this industry is kind of different from how everyone else went in, because I feel like the entertainment industry, to be specific, if I'm being completely honest, it's a very much of who you know. You know, this person, it's easier for you to get in. But how I got in was I literally just heard an ad on radio from Hitz saying that, hey, we're looking for people to join our team. If you are tech savvy, if you are friendly, blah, 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 send your resume on Facebook, which I did. I slid into their DMs, gave them my resume, and I think a week later they called and I went to three different interviews.
Okay.
One with the manager, one with the content manager, with the CEO of Astro Radio. And one fun story that I always like to tell is during my interview, I actually rapped for the network manager, because when I went in for my interview, he took my phone and then he said, you know what? You can learn a lot about someone based on what they listen to. And I was so nervous because I always listen to a lot of emo songs.
Like you still feel like you're just about to get judged, right?
Yeah, like a lot of breakup songs. And then he said, okay, how about you sing me one song from your playlist? And I'm like, I'll do you one better. What about I rap for you? So I did. I rapped Kendrick Lamar Humble song for the network manager. And I guess he was impressed by my rapping skills.
That's how you know how important a producer is, because I definitely did not go through so many interviews. I did not meet all these higher up people. And even to be an announcer, like they never asked me about my playlist. They definitely never asked me to sing or rap because I would not get the job. So I feel like we had very different experiences coming into the same company, but the roles are definitely very different. Like I see Z every single day and I see what she does, and I always tell her I could never do her job, like never, like it would not work out. Like she has to have so much patience, manager skills, you know, like sometimes you control people that are uncontrollable. Ian and Arnold, I'm looking at you. You know, it's a tough job.
Well, people always say that, but I feel like when I first started, it was very, very, very intimidating, because, you know, you're managing these people, these superstars. How am I going to fit in? I can't do this job. But I feel like the most important thing is you have to give a chance to yourself as well. Give time. And if you feel like you've given a certain amount of effort, a certain amount of time, and if you feel like, okay, this isn't for me, then you can quit. But I feel like, you know, when people say, I don't know if I can do what you do, but you don't know. If I would have asked myself 5 years ago if I can do this job, I would definitely say like, absolutely not. But then I gave myself a chance. And then after a while, I got pretty good at it. So, you know, you never know until you actually try it.
So you are the producer, and then there's like all these things that you need to do, right? So let's like talk about the content part. So how do you come up with content? And like, I don't understand, because for me, for my show, basically, I'm just talking about celebrities every day, right? Like if you listen to the radio, you know, like if you listen to my show, I always say I can tell you what Justin Bieber had for breakfast. That's viral. That's what I talk about. But when it comes to the breakfast crew and like the Hitz Morning Crew as well, they talk about a lot of topics. Theirs is very content skewed. So how do you even think of different things to talk about every single day?
Okay, so how we work is we kind of have like a list of things that we would want to zoom in about. Like let's say at 7 and 8, we have a topic. What usually happens is we have to take note of everything that happened in our personal lives, because a big DNA of Aishah and Prem is that we are relatable to people. We come up with topics that people can relate to. And to be able to come up with that kind of content is that you also have to notice the things that are happening in your life. So if you listen to Aishah and Prem, you know, for a lot of our listeners, they know a lot about them because they put their personal lives out there, because that's how you relate to people. So one thing that we do is whenever something happens in our personal life that we feel like, let's say I'm in a dating dilemma. I went on a first date. Who pays, the guy or the girl? Should I be insulted if the guy wanted me to pay? That's a legit question that I have in my head. That's where I come to the team and I said, you know what? I have this question in my mind and I really don't know what I should do. And it's basically things that we do with our friends as well. So and that's the thing that everyone can relate to. I'm sure everyone is not born mature or perfect. And my job is to kind of take note of every little thing that happens. And then I will write it down, take it to the team, and then we just put it on air. Basically, you're just hearing conversations that we have behind the scenes. I feel like that's how you relate to people. That's real life conversation. That's how I work like backwards. The things that I talk about with my friends are the things that I want to bring up on radio as well. Same goes to Aishah and Prem. The things that they are talking about their family, that's the part that we bring onto radio.
Aishah and Prem is like relatable stuff and everyday stuff, right? But like when it comes to like for like the Hitz Morning Crew, for instance, we don't really talk about that kind of thing. So like how do you come up with content then? Because there's one story that I like to tell people about Z. No, there was one time like the Hitz Morning Crew had to do like this campaign. I don't know what they were doing. I can't even remember. And the one thing that I respect about Z is she's very resourceful. Like I could never think of the things that she needs to do and how to get it done in this short amount of time. She needed to find ants. Where do you find ants? Like I don't even know where you find ants, but she went and sat in the middle of a field in the hot sun and caught the ants herself.
Yeah, I did.
Like it was really random. Like I remember I messaged her, where are you? She's like, I'm catching ants. And I'm like, okay.
Okay, the thing about hits is the most important thing is we have to be unpredictable.
That was definitely unpredictable.
Yeah, and we have to be daring, and then, you know, like the sky is the limit. So, and then they needed ants for a prop. So I just took some sugar and then got myself to like underneath the tree, put the sugar in like a Tupperware, and then just waited for the ants to come in.
How long did it take?
I didn't wait for that long. I didn't wait for an hour, maybe like 10 minutes until I'm like just standing and like wondering, what am I doing with my life? You know? I guess being behind the scenes, what people don't know is there's a lot of work needed, a lot of time spent, a lot of discussions went in to create a content that might seem, you know, when you hear on air, like, oh, there's ants in the studio. But behind the scenes, how you get those ants, is it paid? Is it clean? Is it safe? Is it poisonous? You know, those are the things that the producer has to think about. But that's the burden on me, not on the announcers, not on the listeners. I just have to get it done.
But how did you even come up with that? Like, was that a campaign that you came up with? Like, how do you come up with ideas for like hits then? Because it's very different, right?
For hits, most of the content comes from the manager. So I would help the manager in making her dream come to life. So she would come up, like, let's say Priya's our content manager. So she would come up with a campaign that, let's say she saw this from somewhere and it inspired her to do this kind of campaign. I have to make sure that it becomes a reality. And you can find inspiration anywhere, legit anywhere, everywhere you can find it. You also have to work with your team as well. What I think would work for me is when I sit down with someone and we just talk. And you will be surprised what kind of ideas come from, because I can't just sit in a table and then think of ideas. It's very hard. So the best ideas, the best campaigns for me comes from just a team, just sit together and just talk about what's happening. And then you'll be surprised how many ideas that could come. So that's how I create content. I will not take all the credit because I feel like it's a very teamwork effort. Some people would give, okay, this is what's happening in Malaysia. And then someone would chip in and say, oh, this is my opinion and this is my opinion. And then I would kind of like sit down and talk to them and kind of refine all the details. So that's how content works for Mix.
Now we get to the juicy part. Is there like conflict? Like what happens if like, okay, like you're a team of 5 and then like 3 people want to do this content, but 2 people don't. Or like one person die want to do this thing, but like the rest don't really agree. Like how?
Of course there are. I feel like conflicts happen because in reality, in all offices, people have different opinions. But if someone has an idea and if they could convince to us that it is a good idea, then we will follow. I think what a meeting does is that we sit and then we kind of figure out, okay, what are the pros and cons? What is achievable? What is not achievable? And at the end of the day, you have to be decisive. So at the end of the day, you can argue, but we all have to unanimously agree that this is the best decision to make. So that's where teamwork plays a part, because even if you really believe in this idea, if the whole room that disagrees with you, then there must be something wrong with the idea. Because if you are, I want to do this campaign, right? But like if 10 people are against it, then it must say something, you know? It's not particularly a good campaign to do. But what usually happens is we take that kind of idea and then we skew it around it. So we don't throw out the window right away. We kind of improve it.
Okay, so what's your favorite type of content to do for radio?
I love doing topics. I feel like there should be a balance as well. We can't do all like fun topics all the time. We also have to do like serious topics. I remember like a really fun example topic that we did was, would you share a toothbrush with your partner?
Ugh.
Yeah, and like for me, I'd be okay with it. But then
What?
I'm okay with
Why
it.
would you be okay sharing a toothbrush with someone though?
Why wouldn't I be okay? We've already shared everything else. See, this is the kind of things that makes a great conversation. I like that. I like that we choose a topic, a question, and then people get really excited about it. Like, for example, what's happening right now. We also do kind of like real talk because we are living in a society where people are kind of having more awareness. So there is a demand from people to talk about taboo topics. You know, after a while, you would want to hear something that you've never heard of people talking about on radio, you know? Who would have known that people would talk about IVF on radio, about adoption? You know, it's those sort of things where you kind of have to keep balance. And I guess creating content, you can't be one-dimensional. People get bored.
These are topics that like you do on air, right? But like for like with Hitz, obviously, but with Mix as well, like they do a lot of video content as well. So how do you like take that topic and kind of create like video content out of it? Because it's just talking, right?
Usually it goes hand in hand. When we create a campaign, we also would approve only those kind of campaigns that we can create video content out of it. So
Okay. So for example, like you talked about the adoption topic, how would you create a video out of it?
So from the adoption video, what we can do is we would record the interview with some of the experts. So if it's like a conversational topic, we will kind of interview someone who is experienced about the topic, and then we will create video content out of it. So the things that you hear on radio, you could also find on our socials as well. That is if it's an interview.
With Hitz, right? Like we do a lot of like our campaigns are definitely not serious. On the flip side, we also get a lot of people who are like our content is very much always up for debate. So how do you get through that when you're like deciding on what campaign to do?
With Hitz is you never know until you try. If I'm being completely honest, you will never know how people would react to something. It's very experimental. Like everything is off the table. You can do anything. And I feel like if you're creating content, you can't come from a place where you are scared. Yeah, it can't always be safe, and you can't always kind of predict what will happen because you will never know.
It's sometimes really hard to like anticipate what is gonna happen. Every day is a risk.
Yeah, true. Every campaign is a risk. Like you think something will work and then it didn't work, but the most important thing is you try again.
Okay, so have you ever been in a situation where like a campaign didn't work and you just said to yourself, I am so glad that I'm behind the scenes?
One thing that I do kind of realize is somehow when you are behind the scenes and you are there when it actually happens, it feels different than watching it behind the screen when the video is edited. A lot of the time where I feel like when you're there, it's a very different feeling because you get to actually experience it. But sometimes when it's recorded and then it's edited, it doesn't really translate. So it's kind of like a good campaign might not translate well on social media as well. So yeah, it's kind of like sometimes it's a hit and miss. I wouldn't say there are any bad campaigns, but I feel like there are some campaigns, there's room for improvements, I would say.
I think that's like with every platform. Like what works on radio might not work on Instagram. What works on Instagram might not work on YouTube.
I feel like on Facebook, people are more, how should I say, they're more passionate. And like Instagram is like more, I'm going to answer this. They're not as, how should I say, they're not as intense as Facebook users.
I think there's also like an
post.
age difference between platforms as well, right? So like different generations have different tolerance to different subjects and different opinions when it comes to different subjects. But like when you're on radio, like number one, you're broadcast nationwide, like no matter what age it is, there's always a possibility of them hearing it. And then wherever we post digital content, it's posted on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter.
Yeah.
So do you think you found that balance of where all platforms will be happy with the content, or do you think it's impossible?
It's pretty much kind of like, it's very hard to predict sometimes. Sometimes you think this is a good topic. Like, I don't know how anyone could be against this topic. And then you like one or two Facebook comments or Instagram comments will pop up and like have like a very different reaction to it. Yeah, it's very hard. It's very hard to predict. Like you could kind of see if it's a train wreck.
There have been instances where we have seen that coming.
But the thing that if you want to make compelling content is that you have to be brave. And sometimes a negative feedback is a feedback. A negative comment is still a comment. People are still talking about it. So you can't expect people to have like 100% positive things to say. So manage your expectations too is kind of important.
So if anyone does want to be a radio producer, best advice, go.
Best advice.
She's like, I also need advice.
Don't be a producer. No, I'm kidding. My best advice would be is, being a breakfast producer, you could kind of see people, like, because there are sister stations. There are like Chinese stations, Malay stations. I see people come and go. There's the high turnover rate. And I understand why. But I feel like the best advice I could give is everyone else can doubt you, but once you doubt yourself, that's the end. So if you're going into any job, it's going to be intimidating in the beginning. One, because you don't know. If you don't know something, you learn. You don't give up. So I feel like if you go into any job, if it's very intimidating, like I said before, give yourself some time to learn. And what I mean by learn is to actually learn. Don't have an ego. When you start out your job, please don't come in with a kind of attitude where people can't teach you anything because people won't want to work with you. So just come in, be like open to everyone else and even yourself, because you will be surprised how far you could go just by saying yes to things that you would never have said yes before. So I guess the big takeaway is don't give up. Like, that's a very cliche thing to say, but it's a very hard thing to practice. But take it day by day, because I feel like it will be better. Like, if you really set your mind into things, you can do it. Eventually, you will learn how to do it. Whether or not you'll be happy doing it is a different story.
Yeah, I think that's especially, I mean, I guess for every industry, but I feel like for radio, because I can bear testimony to Z, like she has changed so much since the day I met her. And I also had a rough start when I started in radio. I feel like everybody has a rough start when you start in radio. It's one of those things where it does get better. And most of the time you do end up like loving the job so much. And it's an experience you can't get anywhere else. But if I had to give anyone advice if they were to come in to be a producer, and I only know this because my show is right after the morning crew, so I get to see them. And if you ever have a chance to, especially like if you ever get a chance to be a breakfast producer for Hitz, we have a great producer right now, but there's ever the chance, the only advice I give is don't let Ian and Arnold bully you.
No, don't ever let that happen. Don't don't take anything personal with Ian and Arnold. Remember, at the end of the day, they're just idiots.
They're so gonna. I have to see them like after the morning news goes out, but like hopefully they don't listen. But yeah, like Ian and Arnold, they will try to bully you. So just ignore them if you ever get to be their producer. But yeah, like I said, we have a great producer right now. She's bearing the brunt of it.
They are annoying, so you have to be very, very, or you be more annoying than them. That way you can.
It's true. It's true.
So it's either you be very patient or you be very annoying. That's a tip from me.
Yeah, I think that's how you have to get around it. Like Ian and Arnold, like when I first started, they were very sarcastic. They like to insult me. So my way of dealing with it was like do that twofold. So now they're like, never mind.
If you can beat them, join them.
Exactly. That's so good. Okay, anyway, thanks for coming on the C Word, Z.
Oh my gosh, I feel like such a celebrity.
She is. Listen to
so.
Mix to hear her talk about all her relationship advice.
Yeah, please do. 94.5 for people who live in Klang Valley. Follow me on Instagram.
Okay, promote your show.
Subscribe to my channel.
Okay, and thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next one.
The C Word with Callista.